All right, we're going to start off with the kind of most famous, and therefore it becomes the most easiest to understand, diagram in market failure, okay? That diagram is called the negative externalities of consumption diagram, which means negative externality consumption. So read it backwards. Consumption causes an external negative effect, okay? And we're going to use the example of cigarettes in this case, okay? So the notion is that, of course, I am going to buy a pack of cigarettes that costs $5. I'm going to come to this class, right? You're sitting in front of me, and I'm going to light up the cigarette, and boy, is that enjoyable if I'm a smoker. I'm not a smoker at all. Give me a massive headache, and I might even throw up. But let's just say I did it, right? So I light my cigarette, and I exhale. The exhale is going to cause damage to your lungs. That is a negative externality of my consumption of the cigarette. And the reason that what we need to take into account is that's actually going to lead to increasing the cost of the consumption of the cigarette. So I should, if that externality, your health, were actually figured into the purchase of the cigarette, then I wouldn't pay $5. I would pay like whatever, $10 for that pack of cigarettes. Then that way, your health care would have been internalized into the price of the cigarette, but that's not what happened. I just paid $5. Okay, so as a result of paying $5 for that, there's a negative externality of consumption of the cigarette, which hurt your lungs. Okay, hold on one second. Cool. So where do we start drawing that diagram? Well, we start where we always have started in microeconomics, which is the rule of 11. Okay, so you just saw the base diagram. That's the rule of 11. Remember, that goes back to microeconomics. And then we took that diagram and we turned it into what? The base diagram for market failure. So this is a perfectly labeled diagram for the market of cigarettes. Okay, pretty cool. All right. And what we might want to notice right away is that is the socially optimal point, and that means that Q1 level is the socially optimal level of output. This becomes really important because the governments are going to get involved to try to get us back to this level of output, okay? So the government's going to get involved, and they're going to try to get the market to function at Q1, which is a socially optimal level of output, which is where MSB equals MSC, okay? So here's the scenario, right? I go and buy a pack of cigarettes. The cigarettes that I buy, I bring them home. I paid $5, right? Which is the P1, Q1. $5 would be representative of P1, okay? And then what do? I do what all smokers do. You come home and you fire up the cigarette, okay? And the moment I fire up the cigarette, what happens? There is a negative consequence to the people that are around me, and that means that their lungs get damaged. So as a result of that damage done to the lungs, right? What happens? Well, these two lines no longer equal each other, and they've become different or separate. And therefore, we have the shift of the marginal private benefit went outward. Why did it go outward? Because if you've ever watched someone smoke, their private benefit of consuming that cigarette is way greater than what it is for your benefit to sit there and deal with their secondhand smoke, right? So the marginal private benefit is greater, marginal private benefit, notice they no longer equal each other, is greater than what? Than the marginal social benefit. So if we are doing allocative efficiency analysis, we might realize that, wait a second, dude, yeah? What happened? We are operating at a price level up there and an output level up there. So now we have something like P2 and Q2 P2. And where are we operating in the marketplace? P2, Q2. That's where we're operating. P2, Q2. And as a result of that, guess what happens? There is a massive welfare loss that's represented by this spot, right? Let me get the black going on here. Here, A, B, C. So this triangle right here represents a welfare loss to society as the result of the fact that cigarettes are being overconsumed. Did you hear that? Overconsumed. The quantity Q2, which is kind of hard to see there, right, is greater than the socially optimal point. So the government's going to get involved, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at the government solutions to fix this. But what the government wants to do is like, wait, no, that's bad. We want to get back where? To the sun, baby. Back to where? To the socially optimal level of output, which we all know is Q1, okay? So if you're in an economics class and you're super twisted up from these market failure diagrams, this whole method that I just showed you is really, really helpful, because you got to realize that you're constantly trying to get back to point B, and that is where, as I told you, the marginal social benefit curve will always equal the marginal social cost curve right there, okay? So the goal of the government is to move this output back towards Q1. And one of my students a couple years ago was like, hey, Mr. Cartwright, you know what? This is really easy, because you'll see that for every negative externality, the arrow points back towards Q1. It's pretty awesome. And as we get to positive externalities, you'll see that it actually points outward. So that little arrow thing, that's not part of a major economic thing, but you see the arrow going back? Yeah, we want to get back to B. Okay. So how could the government do that? Well, we're going to talk about that in the next slide. But basically what they need to do is they need to get my private benefit back towards here. And they can do that in a couple of ways. But this design, or this video, is just to show you how exactly it looks to construct the negative externality of consumption diagram. All right? You got that? If you don't, go back and practice. And notice I didn't tell you to memorize a thing. I told you to go through the process of building this thing so that you understand the process, the behavior that's going on. My smoking actually did damage your lungs, and my private benefit was actually greater than yours. Woo, because I was enjoying my cigarette, okay? Onward to the negative externality of consumption solutions. Hang on, stay tuned, because this will show you how the government's going to get involved to fix this problem. All right, we're rolling.